Okay, we'll call the Pownal Select Board meeting to order on May 11th at 7 p.m. For the agenda approval of the minutes of 5/4/17, warrants, mail, administrative assistance report. Under old business, we're going to have the sheriff discussion with him. Then we're going to have a discussion with the planning commission. And then we're going to also have a discussion with our certified public accountant, financial audit presentation, and then the treasurer on the auditor contract, and then legal contract for or legal contractual reference to town forest lands. And I had town signage, but we're going to talk about that when you do your report. Okay. So with that,
move to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Approval of the minutes of 5/4/17.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on them? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Warrants. Payroll in the amount of $512, at the end of 5/12/17 in the amount of $8,489.54. Accounts payable ending 5/12/17 in the amount of $9,316.46. What's your pleasure, guys?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I'm going to abstain because the payroll has a check in it for me. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Mail. We have a flyer for a workshop that's occurring to do with Vermont's drinking water. And there's two of them. One's at Burke Mountain on Tuesday, June 6th. The other is Wednesday, June 7th. And that's in Manchester. The other one's in Londonville. People saw this flyer. If you're interested, let Linda know. If I remember correctly, I think that's a free, you just go to it. Doesn't cost anything. But it is all day. Okay.
I'm sure the water district probably received a letter, but could we just forward that to them just to be on the safe side, make sure that
They've got it too.
to Melissa Collins.
Okay. This is V-Trans letting us know they're going to be doing some painting on the roads, markings on roads, detailed within attachments. And pretty fine. Pownal has some. So Church Street, North Pownal Road, Barbers Pond, South Stream Road, and Jackson Cross Road, and Maple Grove. It's the ones that we have looking. After our paving on some of those.
Oh.
Yes. We will let them know that we're going to pay before they.
Yeah, Joel has a copy of that.
Okay. Then there's a Bennington County Road Foreman meeting to do with BOSHA. That's being put on in Bennington. So we should pass that on to our road foreman so he can attend. This is, I think, what we talked about when he was here, when they did a similar thing at another
We
place.
talked about
I'm also going to that.
we
Good.
also talked about passing that on to Darcy.
Yeah. And then we have a Vermont Agency of Transportation Department Motor Vehicles weight permit for Vermont Renewable Fuels. What's your pleasure, guys? Looks like our road foreman has done his bit. You want me to sign it or not?
Move to sign it.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. That's good. Administrative assistant report. I've asked Linda to start giving us a report on where things stand for some of the things that we have done the week before and that they asked to have done.
Okay, this week we picked up supplies for the cemetery planting. We'll get the flowers next week. It was kind of too cold for planting, so do that this week. Coming up, return Class 2 grants, documents to V-Trans, worked on blacktop bid with Joel. It's in your packets, and it will be advertised next week with a due date of June 6th. If there's any amendments, please pass them on to me.
Okay. Yep, there was one.
Just, yeah, on that one, there's one, we wanted it to be tonnage.
On the blacktop bid.
Yeah, cost.
Award will be based on cost per ton, is the way we wanted to have that.
Can I ask a question on that bid? Why don't they recommend roller weight?
Excuse me?
The roller weight that you need to roll the blacktop, how come it doesn't have it?
I don't know. It's the first time we've put this in the bid. We're going off of something used by Bennington.
Yeah, but
Something
no
that,
trouble.
something we added to the bid this year is a tire roller for the base coat. That
yeah, I
would-
understand that.
But I don't think they ever put it in the spec, the
A lot of
size of the
specs you
roller.
bid on it, they want a 10-ton roller or they want whatever.
Well, what
The
do we
heavier
want?
the roller, the more
what-
it spreads out.
What do we want?
Yeah,
Should we be
want?
putting something in there?
I think you should have a 10-ton roller. That's my opinion. I don't know, somebody might know more than I
I
do.
don't know
about it.
anymore. I don't know anything about that. I'm sure Joel would. I mean, I think we could ask him.
Okay, we'll ask.
Ask Joe, and if he agrees with that, let's put it in.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Assisted with the lease purchase agreement for the wheeled excavator. Nelson
Yeah.
signed the sales agreement, noting the 10-year annual upfront payment of $22,855 per year. In the opt-out provision, it has a 60-day written notice by the term end, so we get to keep it 1 year, return it with the opt-out, return it to the dealer if we decide that we're not going to keep it. The road crew ad was placed and posted as requested. Class 2 grant distribution also included in the board's packets. The BC asked me for some research for the recreation plan, corrected the contact numbers for the LOP and returned it to BCRC and Mr. Odell. Contacted VLC for compliance as requested by the board. Lucy McNulty forwarded the signage designs and quotes, and you also have those in the packets, and I see tonight you are making revisions.
Yeah, we probably should talk a little bit about that at this point, with the signage. I'm not sure what the rest of you were thinking, or I know this is the first time we've seen this, but I was thinking that basically we needed two signs. One that lets us know it's the town office, and the other letting people know where the offices are so they have an arrow to go to the right direction. If you look at the drawings that were put in your packet, if you go to the second page versus the one with the names on it, you'll see where they put the locations of the signs. And I was thinking the town office thing was fine, and I was looking at the directory and saying that was okay. But if you're already pointing an arrow saying the town clerk's here, I didn't think we needed that on the door. And I didn't think we need a sign down by the road when we're gonna have a sign right on the building. And it's not that far away where we're gonna be able to not see it.
Yeah, for such a small building, it seems like an awful lot of signage.
Well, I'm just thinking too, Some-
There's a lot of people that cannot see this building from down at the road. They're driving by and they can't. It's just, I mean,
and they go right by.
we only had a little tiny town clerk sign over the door to begin with.
Yeah, well, I'm very small. This sign is much bigger that she's putting over the door now, though, so we should be able to,
It's 18 by 5.
Right.
the town office 12 by 20.
Oh, okay, that one. I'm
Yeah,
looking
that
at.
was over the door.
That's a door one also.
So that's the one you want?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and it's got nice big letters on it, you'll see.
Big sign.
It's not 10 square feet, so I don't have to get a sign permit for it.
He's always thinking, isn't he?
You're gonna have to go to the DRP for that.
So,
So which signs do you want now?
I said the town office one in the directory.
Above the door.
Yeah,
Yep,
the
and then
20, the above the door.
And then the directory one that lets you know where you have to go to the back for a bunch of things, and then you have to go to the town clerk in the front.
Okay. Just those two.
I don't know if you want to add anything more than what's there, but I think that's a pretty long list now. You want the letters to be large enough so people can see it, so.
Right, and if it's green, it's gonna stick out on the building too. I mean,
Yeah, well, and our trim is green, so I thought that was a pretty good color myself, instead of trim. I've said my piece, what do you guys think?
I agree.
All Ronnie, what do you think?
I agree,
You like
that's
me?
fine, that's plenty enough information.
It's fine with me.
Tells you everybody that's here, and it's got that town office above the door, that's what we want.
So I'll make a motion, we go with sign B and sign C. That's how they're
The B
referred
and C
to.
are on the sheet here?
Yes, they're on the cover right here, B and C.
Oh, B,
Yep. Right. Does that look right?
B and
Yes.
C.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Oh, you'll let her know? Lucy,
Yeah.
know. Thanks.
Now, town clerk's gonna be
The
on door.
assistant town clerk's
No, it's not.
completing,
No.
compiling any outstanding expenses to be paid by June 30th. We had a
Good.
worker comp audit today. Thank you, Ellen, for gathering information that we needed. Chad Smith is here tonight to talk about the excess weight permits. The BCRC annual dinner meeting is next Thursday, so we have no board meeting. May 25th, no meeting. June 1st, Shaftesbury Town Administrator is scheduled. We'll do the budget adjustment for the road that we were presented with today. June 8th, Joel is scheduled. We're gonna do Joel road foreman then. And that's when the blacktop bids are gonna hopefully be awarded if everything, they're due on the 6th, so it gives a couple of days to look them over, make sure everything's the way that we asked.
When is the application supposed to come in when we send out for the job opening that we have?
May 30th,
Okay, and when
May
is that
31st.
sent out already?
yes,
Okay.
yes. I ran it in the 2 weekend editions and posted it in town.
Okay, good. So I'm just saying that because somewhere in between what you just said, we're gonna have to do
Because
interviews.
you wanted to do interviews probably during the month of June, so you can do the July 1st,
Right,
roughly, start date.
good.
What are our meeting dates in June?
June, we have, actually, there's
There's 5
5
Thursdays.
meetings. And we have, the wastewater treatment is the mandatory for budget
budget.
adjustments.
Okay, so we will
you're
have
gonna
one.
be at the plant. So you have 1, 8, 15, whatever, I can't see that far away on the calendar.
Yeah, well, basically,
22 is
Yeah.
wastewater, right, and then the 29th
Ninth.
is back here.
Yep,
Back
it's
here.
back
Okay.
here.
Okay.
So the 29th, actually, that's the last day we have for budget.
I was gonna say,
budget.
we're gonna be
That's the
busy
last
that
one.
whole month, so.
Yep. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. Oh, and Jen Hawley was scheduled for
For the 8th.
Yep, for the 8th also.
Yeah, and you got the web pages that she sent? I sent copies to everybody, I believe. Did I send them to you, Jason?
Yes, you did.
You got them, Ronnie, right?
Did you send
I
any to
can't
me?
open my computer, but
Oh.
I'll get my
I
helper.
don't remember
to open it.
I
seeing
don't know
them.
if I sent them to you or
I
not,
don't
Linda.
recall seeing anything today.
I'll send them to you.
Okay.
When did you send them today? You when?
Last week.
Oh, I definitely don't have it.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah. She sent about 7 or 8 different web pages from different places she's done.
Maybe,
Some local ones.
And she's thrilled
Look
to.
really nice.
She's,
To come
I know
down.
I sent them to you
yeah, I
because
must have them somewhere. I'll just have to look for them.
she sent a nice letter, said she was excited to talk to us, and
Good.
I just knew it was down the road, so I probably didn't put
all
anywhere
right,
near
I'll
there,
send
but I
I'll
did.
send them again tomorrow.
Okay, thanks again. Moving on to the next thing. Our sheriff is here, Shad Smith, and we're gonna talk about excess weight permits and other things.
All right, I'm here. I did have a conversation with Linda briefly about what was going on, but I still, I guess, need to understand what specifically you want enforced. Whether it's, I don't think you want to get into the trucks being weighed by us. Maybe I'm wrong at that. I think the concern is that companies aren't getting a permit, but not necessarily that they're overweight. It's just that they don't have the permit. Is that?
Well, there's both of those things is the problem. Some of them might have permits, I don't know, but clearly, we see lots of trucks running up and down North Pownal Road that clearly are overweight. And I do know that, I didn't know if you guys weighed them or if you had to have the DOT itself do that?
Well, I mean, we can get into that, but it's, you know, I gotta send somebody to training. It's a 4-day training, so it's not insurmountable, but the issue becomes is where do we weigh them? The only place in town that has scales that I know of is TAM, but you'd have to enter into an MOU, you know, with them. But that becomes, you know, can be looked at as a conflict because, you know, there's a good chance we might be weighing one of his trucks and giving him a fine, so.
How does the DOT do that?
They have portable scales,
Okay.
but they cost upwards of $5,000 to get one set. You know, so there are ways to do it, but we're not currently set up to do it.
Some of these trucks that are running in here are 34,000 pounds empty. There's 24,000 pound weight limit on
Yep.
most of our town roads. So they're overloaded before they put anything on.
Yep.
And some of them got trailer behind them, so they're well over
Right.
that, so.
Well, I guess
how do we enforce that?
the question is if we know that, if you see a truck and you know definitely it's overweight, do you still have to weigh that in order to
Yes.
issue a ticket?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was assuming you have to follow a certain procedure.
You do, and it's, you know, it's, when you get to court, you've got to prove beyond a preponderance of the evidence that, and I think we have an attorney here somewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
you have to prove the preponderance of the evidence that, you know, what we think is true, and by weighing the truck, that's going to be our evidence to produce in court. So you can't just go by what's on the registration or what people have it registered for. You have to go by what the scales say. So, and you know, the next class coming up is in October that the DMV is putting on. I have spoken to Kevin Andrews, who also lives here in town. He's the captain of DMV enforcement, so he's a local person who said he would be willing to come to the board to discuss with me, to discuss what our options are, and we can use him as a resource as far as getting someone on my staff trained to do that sort of thing, if that's the direction you want to go.
Well, I guess there's a combination with that. I would say that maybe we can get them to do a little patrolling, knowing
Yeah, that-
what the occurrence is too, just
That
for
could
the
be, right.
waiting of a weigh-in of the trucks and stuff.
They also have portable scales that they will allow municipalities sort of to loan them to them, but I think they only have 4 or 5 sets statewide. So I don't know where we would be on that list in order to get it. But I do know that we have to sign an MOU with them, and we do have to send that officer to the training in order to receive those. So that is another option.
Yeah, but, well, I think we need, as a municipality, needs to research and see if we can get the scales. But I would not hesitate to have someone be trained.
Mhm.
I don't know what that costs you and what we have to come to some sort of agreement on where that is.
I mean, it's completely up to you as far as we can use the hours that we already contract with you toward that. You can, you know, budget.
What is it, 4
Above
hours
and
that
beyond.
they have to be there, or did you say? Or-
It's 4 days. So
4
it's
days.
4 days at 8
So
hours.
it's, yeah, so it's 32 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the board?
Just of training.
Just of training. Yeah.
To me, I mean, I think that's opening up a whole nother can of worms. Some of the issues that I've heard were specific offenders. Like in the winter months, we have some pretty major logging jobs going on. And we had some people out of town, contractors that were shortcutting North Pownal Road here and back both directions. You know, huge tractor trailers. That's the concern that I've heard. The other concern I've heard is these garbage trucks that are coming into our local facility aren't. They're not using their covers, and we're making a mess on Route 7, both below and
Maybe we can just talk to Kevin, have him come and see if they'll do a check here once in a while.
Well,
I personally think we gotta do something about it,
Yeah,
the overweight.
yeah.
I don't care what other people say, I see these trucks, I'm on the road all the time, I meet them. Trailer trucks on a 24,000 weight limit road, North Pownal Road. I see what they did to North Pownal Road.
That's
I
what's
had a
breaking
guy
up
come
your
down
roads.
to me, he was so upset 2-3 days ago. All he did was he went out and tried to speak to these people putting in the solar panels up there, bringing trucks up there. They run all over his lawn, dug it all up. The guy threatened to knock him on his ass. He said if I didn't have a bad arm, he said I'd have taken him on, but he said I couldn't lift my arm. He was pretty mad, pretty hot. And I mean, I think we need a little bit of something here. This has happened all through the winter. They did the logging up here in Pownal Center, What's the rule? If they come down, say like Barbers Pond Road, when they hit 7, don't they have to take a major highway?
I honestly don't know. That's why I asked
Well,
Kevin
I'd
to
like
come
to have that
because
found out.
that's that the whole enforcement of overweight trucks gets into a whole new,
Yes.
above and beyond what we normally do. And I'm not going to say that we can't get involved in it. I'm just saying that we're not there yet, and we don't normally, enforce those kinds of things. Even Bennington Police Department had Andy Corey for a lot of years. It was sent away to training, and they actually went up on a federal level to get trained. So that they could get into log books and all that kind of stuff, which isn't what we're talking about here. But my point is that there is training upon training to get involved in that kind of thing, and the regular deputy that's out there patrolling doesn't have that kind of training.
Yeah, well, I guess that brings up another thing. If we train one person and if he stays on board, we're okay. If he doesn't, then we're back to what do we do?
Right.
I see them lots of times up there on 279.
Yeah.
State police, not
Yeah, I do
sheriffs.
too.
State police.
Yep.
They got the scales.
Yeah.
They got the people scared. Them truckers know,
DMV, yeah, DMV
Come on,
is
once
out.
you get hit, they got some pretty substantial fines.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to crucify the truckers, but I'll tell you what, this lousy $10 overweight permit, what's that going to pay for? That don't even pay for a patch.
No.
I mean, I think we should show that we got a little teeth. If we got to spend a little money, we should get it back. Who recovers the money for the fines?
The percentage would come back to the town.
Well, there you go.
It makes sense to me. I personally think that we should certainly go for the training, and we should check to see what it means to get the scales loaned to us. Because if we have the 2 items, then we can do something. But at this point, we're just talking about it. We don't have anything in hand. We don't have the training. I think those first steps, like Ronnie said, let's move on. Let's do something.
I think if you talk to Kevin in between, he could set up something.
Would it-
Oh, yeah.
Would it be beneficial to have myself and Kevin come back at a meeting maybe in June?
Yeah, I think that's okay, but I think at this
June's
point...
going to be a bad month, so, right?
Yeah, well, even if we came back,
Yeah.
I'm thinking at this point here, we know we're gonna do something, we ought to move today and let him go ahead and get his training and see if we can get the scales. Then when Kevin comes in, we might have something that says, you now have somebody that's available and we have scales, and he can work with you. So now we have 2 groups down here, sort of
Yep,
meeting our roads
absolutely.
versus one. Because I think once we start and show that we're gonna enforce, you'll see a difference. People behave different.
We have signs with weight limits on them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're all.
Yeah,
they're all
24,000 all over the place.
Yeah.
Back years ago, I used to haul scrap into Port Albany. You're talking about the scales down there. I don't believe Tam is crooked. But when you drove on the scale, I used to drive a truck on the scale. They put the ticket in there, it punched the number on. When you came back by, they punched the tear on. That's how they paid you.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as these scales, and they're balanced and corrected and everything else. So I mean, now and then, even if to put the fear of God into some of these people, because them are big fines, according to this fellow. He was a truck driver. But and it's totally abusive. And I was really irritated when the guy jumped out of the truck and threatened that man on Dean Road, secondary road. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, he laughed at us and said, here's your $10 permit, and laughed at us and did whatever he wanted to anyway, and there was nothing we could do about it. And we called Joel and everybody to
But
come
if
down.
Kevin was there, he could put a red label on that truck and it wouldn't have moved.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's why, again, I think, how wide an area does Kevin have to carry? All of Bennington County?
Well, he travels up to Montpelier twice a week, so they're all over. They don't have somebody just dedicated to Bennington County all the time.
Yeah, so and what I'm saying is, I'm back to train our people that
Oh,
we
yeah.
hire.
Yeah.
See if we can get the scales, and ask Kevin too. Because I think that's the type of coverage you're gonna need initially to get something done. They'll see it here, they'll make a difference.
But I still think we need to have some more discussion in the whole picture, because right now we're only budgeting for 26 hours a week of patrol.
Yeah.
So out of that amount of time, I mean, I think we'd have to decide what we're gonna,
Well, I think we could,
what and how we're gonna break that up, and if we're gonna,
well, I
I
think,
mean, obviously there's gonna be an increase to that cost if we're gonna pay to have a guy get.
no, he said he would
certified.
take hours that we now budget and break it up. So maybe what we'll do is end up paying for 32 hours, but those 32 hours might be spread over 4 weeks.
Yeah, however
So-
you want
so-
to do it.
so-
Okay,
It's-
okay.
So it's not hey, we're gonna pay 32 hours more.
Okay.
We're gonna lose 8 hours a week for 4 weeks, or
Okay.
do it differently the other way.
I think even if it does cost us a little extra, it at least would show that, look, you're not coming into Pownal with trucks way overloaded. We're not gonna stand for that. I'd try to get a reputation like Nassau's got. Nassau, New York, or places like that. You don't speed through them towns. You don't do any of that kind of stuff.
Salem, New York.
That's right. There's quite a few of them, and they watch them trucks. Cambridge, you go through there over 20 miles an hour by that school, you're gonna get a pinch.
They pinch you.
But 32 hours, we're talking roughly $1,000, guys. Come on,
Yeah.
it's, do the training.
He'll pay for itself.
Yes, I think so.
So if I can get a motion for him to go ahead and do the training,
I make that motion.
get a second,
Second,
okay? Any more discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And at the same time, you can talk to Linda and we can find out where we get these scales.
Yes, I'll work with Kevin on that to
Yeah.
see what the process is.
Because we won't need them right away because we
Right.
won't have anybody
Right.
trained, but we need to find out if
Let's
we
get
can
on the
it-
list, yeah.
Get on the list, see when we can get them.
Perfect.
Super, that works really good for us. Okay,
How do we,
Anything else?
how do we get other truckers in town to get their permit to begin with?
by having people stop them.
Just let them get stopped and,
I mean, that's something, I have a list now,
You do,
so.
okay, I was just gonna say we have one here.
I'll give this to Joel and he can put it out to the folks that do patrol down here, and if they see a truck go by that's not on the list, we can stop them and say, hey, you need to go down to the town office and get a permit.
put a notice
because
down at
our
TAM.
list presently is smaller than it's ever been.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think that's the way to do it, though. We can stop these guys and say, hey. But.
It's
and,
smaller, meaning they're not getting their permits.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by having the list now, at least you know who does.
Right.
But according to that permit, anytime they come in with a truck over 66,000, they're supposed to call for that load that day. Nobody's doing that.
They gotta call it to Joel. But that's why we need to do, we
Yeah,
need to
we
start.
need to
the
update
enfor-
this.
Well, we need to do the enforcement, is what we need, and I think, it's not one of us at the table here that's gonna do the enforcement. We can only authorize it and pay for it, and I think that's the steps we need to do. Anything else you're talking about tonight, other than these items? We'll be doing contract when it comes
Yes.
July 1st in that area? Okay.
Yeah, I can send out nothing, the price is gonna go up to 35 from 34. That's simply labor cost. I don't charge you for the vehicle because we're so close to my office and the deputies that are patrolling are, most of them live here. So, nor other contracts are at the $42 an hour rate. But those are gonna go up $1 next year also, so you're just going up on the labor cost. And that's, I don't have to tell you why that's going up. I mean, I know you go through it with your employees and, so that's a good figure to use for the next contract, is $35 an hour.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we'll look
All right.
forward to seeing the contract come in.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you all very
Thank
much.
you, appreciate it.
Chad?
Mike Slatter, you're up next.
Come on, pull up. Oh, need one more. Right where you are. Need one more. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for squeezing us in. Before we start, does everybody know these two guys?
No, I think you should introduce yourselves, so everybody.
Maybe we should too.
My name is Sid Smithers. I'm on the Planning Commission.
I'm Michael Batcher with BCRC.
And Michael Slattery of the Planning Commission. Thanks for squeezing us in, as I said. Did you bring a copy of that letter to Linda?
Everyone has a copy.
Everyone does have a copy. Okay, I wasn't sure. So we want to talk about that letter tonight and the work that Michael has done in the BCRC. And I'm going to let Michael answer most of these questions. And if you need any more detail on that letter, he's certainly the guy to do that. But one of the things that Sid and I want to do is we want to very strongly advocate on Michael's behalf here as you look at that letter. Working with the BCRC, and Michael has been an extreme pleasure for us. He's taken us light years over and above where we were on this town plan, even in comparison to working with other groups as we have in the past. And we are near the finish line, as it said in the letter, close to having drafts for public hearings in June, which means then that the select board will probably sometime in July will be doing the same thing, assuming that the public hearings are good. We don't have to make any changes. But working with him has been a pleasure. One of the things about Michael is he's very hands-on. He is at our meetings, which is a huge advantage over hiring consultants from out of the area. He puts in a lot of time and a lot of effort, and he mentioned to us 2 meetings ago that he was already quite a bit over budget, and I requested this letter. So if you haven't read it and you want to take a second to read it, I'm going to turn this over to Michael, unless Sid has anything to add to what I just said.
Well, I would only add that the completion of the town plan has been years in the making. We're operating on a town plan that's been renewed and renewed several times. It hasn't been truly updated in a long time. We think it's time we get this done and the town have the benefit of a new town plan. And we're close enough to the finish line, so I hope the board will see fit to assist us in getting across the finish line.
Well, certainly, I mean, we need a town plan. That's obvious. I mean, it's required by state and county rules. But one of the other things, there's a lot of things coming together right now. Nelson and Bruce and I were at a meeting the other night. This climate economic meeting I thought was a fantastic meeting, and so there's a lot of initiative for potential job creation. The economic sections of our town plan are like right in alignment with what we heard the other night. The energy part is. But the other big thing is we need town plan in place to reapply for our village designations. Also, big economic advantage for this town. We have to get those in place, and we have to get people in place to really understand those village designations. I never did before. When we had Richard Amori down here to speak to us, he gave us examples of towns this size and the work that they had done and the amount of money that was available for community growth, sidewalks, businesses to advance and do all kinds of neat undertakings. It's pretty cool. So along with that, and the forest thing that we heard last week, and the eventual finishing of this town plan, getting these village designations, I think is crucial, and the sooner we can do it, the better. So, you have anything to add to that?
No. The only other thing I would add is, I mean, we will finish your plan one way or the other. If you are generous and give us more money, that helps us a great deal. We don't have a grant to do this. We're using the money you gave us, as you offered before. The plan needed a lot more work than I expected. The consultants worked on basically, I think, 3 or 4 sections: energy, economic development, flood resiliency, and I can't remember the last one. But the plan hadn't been updated for a while, so there was a lot of stuff that's old.
Yeah.
Just today I was going through it and I found a reference to something, and I asked Bill Colvin, our economic development person, where did that come from, because I've never heard of that. He says, yeah, that was something that was done in 1999. We probably should take that out of the plan. It's outdated. And I just found it by accident. The other thing that we want to do is, I don't know if you're all familiar with energy. The whole requirements for energy in town plans has changed dramatically. The Department of Public Service basically has a series of criteria that if a regional commission or a town meets, it gives you standing when they are reviewing a project. Right now you don't, because your plan doesn't have those requirements. I'm putting in all the requirements we can do up till this point, except for a map that would indicate siting preferences. But we're hoping to get money in the summer, and for 5 towns, of which Pownal would be one, so we would be able to use that money. So you're gonna get your town plan adopted, but then you're gonna have to revise it.
Right, that
Soon
section
after
especially.
to finish the energy, but we'll have it a fair way along. Siting standards are really gonna have to sit down and look at maps, really what it comes down to. And so that's I think beyond our time frame. Otherwise, right now, I've got the entire plan together in one piece, and I should be able to send that to you all tomorrow.
But that's a great point about the energy section. A year ago, we had a planning commission approved energy section written, sent to Land Works, who we used for consultant before, approved by them with minor changes, and Michael gets his hands on it,
good,
and it was good, but it was in essence
It's
obsolete.
immediately outdated.
Yeah.
And the legislature has changed the rules. And
Change, but
Yeah.
just not on that section, on
Dramatic.
another section on housing and other things too. And you know, these guys are obviously very closely connected with all of those things, and have seen a lot of these plans. So, you know, we're like right there. So, we hope you can help.
I'd make the motion to
You're asking.
cover that expenditure.
It's
To
10,000.
finish it, Yeah.
Second it.
Okay. I'll ask the question where you get the money
I
from.
was just gonna say, do we have the money?
Is that important?
Well, basically, right now, left in this budget, from what I got here, this was sent on, you just gave us this, right? The ones I got in my
Ellen?
The
Alan? 511.
today.
They have $3,335 in planning board expenses, which I think could go towards this. And next year, July 1st, you got $3,500, which is $7,000. I know you might be back for money for printing things.
Printing and
And
yeah.
other things, but I'm saying to get this thing written
I
and out
agree.
there, let's state where we're gonna get this money from.
Sure.
Because you can give the 3,500 before July 1st, that's here, rather than just let it go back.
And then July 2nd.
And then the other will be the following year.
Okay.
And that basically gives you 7, and all we have to worry about is taking out of a contingency fund is whatever that
Right.
difference is, the $3,000.
Well, that's wherever we get the money is up to you, but I think the 3,500 we have an agreement for 5,000 already, so we're asking for an additional 10, so the 3,500 might be going to the current agreement.
Okay,
So it's
this
basically
is what we're
already
trying to find out, what's it
Yeah.
really
Well,
costing us?
No, I don't think it
Yeah,
does
it
go
is.
to the current agreement, the 3,500. That was our budget.
Can you already bill us for the final?
No,
Oh, you
we
have.
build part,
Yeah, I was gonna say, you already spent 5,164 out of this
we haven't.
planning board expenses. I don't know where that went, but that's what you spent this year.
Right. I mean, the way that the budget broke down, I believe this 5,000 was carried over.
No, we had
From-
8,500 last year, and
Okay, all
we
right.
had more money in it, because you came in and asked for $5,000. We
Right.
budgeted more.
In addition to our regular $3,000 to $4,000 budget
Yeah.
that we generally have per year for expenses and things like just normal expenses.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Michael's referring to. Okay,
So the total nut is 15, not 10.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we.
five's been issued.
Appropriate. And some of it's
Mm.
probably we build part, I know we built part of it, I didn't build it.
Nelson,
it
it's
stays
gonna
here.
have to come from the capital.
Well, it can come from the capital, or the capital.
Can't be spending the contingency.
How much do we have in the contingency for this year that's in July 1st?
It's not a line
You
item.
cannot,
It's not a line item.
it's not a line item. You have to,
Well, I'm saying if we overspend, we overspend. I'm looking at trying to split this over 2 years. That's what I'm trying to do. So if we took this 3,500 and put 5,000
capital
Overspend
fund
it by
has
5.
money in it, Nelson.
and just spend it. I know the capital has money in it, but one of the things that we're looking at here is we're gonna talk about force and legal costs and the rest, and I don't know how much we have in legal. And I think if anywhere, that capital money might end up being spent there,
You can't move, I don't think you can do that.
you know? I'm just telling you, that's a capital project. Just like this one. So we have to weigh where it's coming from.
Sure.
And I again am saying that we should try to find a way to spend this over 2 years, because we're so close to July 1st, rather than putting 15,000 in, because I assume you're not gonna bill all of it till after, some of it's gonna come in after July 1st anyways. Are you billing us 15,000 next week, or this next month?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
The bill's in the mail, no.
Because if the bill is after
we-
July 1st, it falls into another year
Yeah, we probably spent close to 12 or 13.
right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're gonna go over the 15, well over that. I mean, we expect that. But, so anything that keeps us from going much over. So normally, yeah, we would probably try to close it up by the end of our fiscal year, June 30th.
Same as us.
Yeah. And our agreement would do is to have the thing done by the end of July, end of June.
June, right?
So we can't spread it over 2 years.
No.
We got a lot of money in the capital fund?
Well, you put 16,000 by according to this thing in it, so. Right, unencumbered,
Capital fund.
That's in your capital.
somewhere we have,
We're talking about having too much money kicking around there, let's spend it.
There's
Then
$78,623
they'll put us on the relief.
in your capital fund, right?
You're on
As
TV.
of tomorrow. I gave you a TV fund balance sheet with all your.
It never bothered you. Never.
No.
Never will.
Find out how long.
is that what you said?
You have $78,600 in your capital fund right now before July 1st, and then July 1st, you'll have more money in it because we're going to a new budget. Whatever you budgeted, I don't have that in front of me, but
Well, that's what I have on here. Capital fund. Just get it open to that.
you don't have the new budget, Nelson.
Budget fiscal year 2018.
Oh, yes, I gave you a comparative budget. Yes, I did.
So to find where they put it in.
100,3,700, I think, or something.
3,700, okay.
Maybe.
Capital fund is 16,000,
So then you just have another 16 to go back in.
which would cover,
Right.
so.
And you haven't spent anything out of the capital fund this year at all?
None at all this year?
No.
Fine. Okay,
So do we have a motion on the floor? What do I?
yeah, you do. I'm just trying to figure out where you're gonna get the money from. All those, we'll figure it out afterwards. We'll have them come back and tell us where it's coming from.
What's the motion? 10,
Yeah.
10, additional 10.
You need 10 or
Additional
15?
15?
They need-
Is that in addition
I
to,
thought it was
well, we got
No, no.
3,000.
He needs 15.
additional
They
10,000.
need 15.
We have an agreement for 5, so it would be an additional 10.
Right.
15 total.
Oh.
Okay.
But you've already presumably budgeted for 5.
Oh,
Didn't we already?
Did we give you anything yet?
Yeah,
Well,
we
expenditures is
some
5,000.
amount.
But not part of the 15. I'm trying to,
I'm trying to figure it out too.
we owe
Well,
you
in
15
your
more.
letter, you state that, an additional 10
Yes.
is needed.
Additional 10 is needed. Okay, so that's what the letter
All right.
says. So the motion is gonna write it the additional 10. If there's more, we'll deal with it. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
aye.
All right.
Capital fund.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That's what's in
Thank you for working so hard on
Can I
it.
ask you to announce one other thing when you get a chance? There's a household hazardous waste.
Become a lifelong journey. See.
No, it wasn't, but I think you did it once earlier. I'm just
Sometimes, Mike, you
saying.
just gotta
And
say
when is
it's
it?
May 20th.
over. You gotta stop it
You
somewhere.
gotta know when to quit.
Been through it, been through it.
Just sign your name and get it over with, get it off
No,
your
when we
desk.
did the wastewater project, we were changing it constantly for years.
Well, we don't wanna change it. We want
Is
it to
that
be
the
over.
Bennington this
We
year?
were changing
The
it.
state and the county says,
It's at the Bennington?
can't,
It
gotta do
was
it
taking
this
10
way.
years to do a town plan, and finally you just gotta draw the line and say,
Yeah.
what we have
There you
is,
go.
that's what we got.
Well, you'll see it in
Thank
June.
you. Okay, look forward to it.
Thank you, sorry, Grace. Take care.
Okay,
Thank you, lady and gentlemen.
Thanks for coming
Good
in.
night, Sid.
thanks for coming in.
Okay. All right, Ron is up.
All right, where are we at now? Okay, on to the next thing. Okay. You're gonna give us a quick rundown on our
Yeah,
accounting issues, if any?
I can talk for 5 minutes, 15, or an hour and a half, whatever you
Well,
like.
what we like is a synopsis of if we have any issues, tell us what they are,
Okay.
and if they're all good, everything's good, let us know that.
Okay.
That's sort of the quick,
Well, I'd like to thank the select board for choosing our firm as your independent auditors. As you know, you went out to bid last year, and we were awarded a 3-year contract for the audit, and our price was $12,300 lower than the other bid. So the nice thing about that is that you guys got to save some money. The second nice thing is that you've got an auditor rotation. Government Finance Officers Association states that every 5 years, every 6 years, you ought to change auditors. It preserves the independence. We are independent. We work for you. We work for the select board, and it's a best practice. So anyway, with that, let me go over the auditor's reports, because I think that's what you wanted to do, and go over a couple things, and then if you want to ask any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them. The spiral bound product, I think I see some of them out there, is a combination of two things. It's
How are we doing?
I did too.
We got it 2 weeks ago.
you got mailed out. Okay.
So if you want to use mine, you can.
It's a combination of two things. The auditor's report is on page 1 and 2, and then from pages 3 through 32 is the town's financial statement that's been prepared for the town. The auditor's report, again, is on page 1 and 2, and the purpose of a financial statement audit is to have an independent auditor state his or her opinion on the financial statements that are in here. On page 2 of the auditor's report, the very first paragraph says, in our opinion, these financial statements present fairly in all material respect the financial position of all of your funds and the changes in that financial position that occurred during the year. That's called a standard auditor's report. If I would have ran across items that concerned me, I could have issued a modified report with exceptions, or I could have issued an adverse report that said that these financial statements do not present the information. None of which so I didn't do that. You have a standard report. So that's good. So a reader can look at these financial statements and feel that they're reliable. If these aren't something that was put together just to make yourself look good, these statements can be verified and supported with data within your town. When we do a financial statement audit, it's historical. We're looking back in time. Your year end is June 30th of 15. I'm sorry, of 16. We're looking back in that time. If we see that there are weaknesses in your internal control system that's used to prepare these financial statements, we have to bring that to your attention, and that's more forward-looking for the future. It's saying that if you don't strengthen the control, it could cause a problem. So in the very tail end of our presentation, page 33 and 34, that's where we do a independent auditor's report on your internal control system, and we came up with 4 findings, which are on page 35 and 36. And these have already been handled by the board. Finding 1's an internal control document. Finding 2 is capital assets needed to be recorded on your financial statements, which has been done, and you have a policy now to make sure that happens in the future. Finding 3 on page 36 talked about when you refinance a bond, or even when you get a brand new bond, it's a revenue. That's been corrected on your financial statements, and we're just kind of giving you that as a warning for the future. And, and by the way, earlier tonight you were talking about a lease of a piece of equipment. A lot of times a lease is like a loan, and it has to be capitalized. So when that occurs, you might have to call that a revenue also on your financial statements. Sometimes that gets missed, but just to let you guys know. And then finally, there was one comment on fund balance. Didn't match up to the last year's number. So 3 of those, we said you need a policy. You did make a policy subsequent to me issuing this report. I know you did because you mailed me copies of them. Actually, you mailed me the originals. So I brought them back, and you guys can keep the originals.
No, we had.
Oh, you did?
I did them in.
Okay. I didn't want to keep something that might have been yours, but that's fine. Okay. So that's really good that you've already handled those items. The internal control document is something I'm not sure what you're doing on that. It should be worked on. I got a feeling you probably are. There's a lot of things that can go into that. If you need some assistance from me, I'd be more than happy to help you. But even as you guys just had a discussion about taking money from a capital account to pay for other bills, that would already be in that internal control document, and you could point right to it. Things too about invoicing. When a bill comes in after the end of the year, it still might pertain to the year that's being audited. So we have to be really careful, and those things have to be defined. And that's why we wanted to bring that internal control document up to you, is because it's kind of like the owner's manual of your accounting system. So that's what we did that. We came into the audit thinking that with our audit plan that we were going to have this completed by December 31st. It did take a little extra time. We finished our auditing testing on February 3rd. Considering this is you had the same auditor for 15 years, it did take us a little bit extra time. We did process 2 trial balances. The second one was the final one that made its way into here. If you had an internal control document, you might put in there that your books will get closed by, let's say, July 31st or August 31st, and that becomes the final. And you really need to define that process of when that ends. We replaced the trial balance that we had with another one in November, and that we had to go back and do a lot of work, because now we're replacing a trial balance and using something with new numbers on it. So that's just something to maybe add into that document as you go forward. We had one other little snag regarding fixed assets. There was some fixed assets on your depreciation schedule that was not in the prior year's financial statements. They are on your statements now. See, those 2 things are matching up, so that's good. I think that's pretty much an overview of the audit in your your audit.
Let me ask
and
a couple questions.
Sure.
You know, as you know, we voiced a couple concerns. One is having a report done by you, which you're doing here tonight. The other was, we were concerned about the not being finished on time, but it sounds like part of that is we're new to you, you're new to us. There could be some things that cause some delay because of that. The other thing that we have is, let me ask first, do you think the next time you do your audit, you'll be in on the time that's been bid on, or do you still think that there could be some flexibility on how that falls?
You're all formatted now in my computer system so that this can be generated very quickly. We still have to do our testing. Provided you can make sure that you have a cutoff of whether it's 30 days after year end, 60 days.
It's 60.
I wouldn't.
Because we're on an accrual system
Okay.
through August 30th.
So if I can get a trial balance that's final 60 days after year end, that's July, August 31st. And that's I load it up into my system once. Yes, you will have this by your December 31st. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that we're talking about is that we have other departments within Pownal that we'd also like to be added to this audit. One is the clerk's thing, and we're doing more with gathering data on the clerk from collecting fees and other things. So it will be in our budget process. So we want to make sure that that was audited as well, so that we're balancing out not just our road and our general, but there could be the clerk funding. And I don't know just how that's going to be handled, but it's something that we certainly want to have audited.
So the clerk's monies right now are
They're in our general
they're
fund.
in the general fund. They're being recorded.
Yeah.
So a financial statement audit would include all dollars throughout all your departments that are on your accounting records.
Okay, so through the general.
Yeah. So it gets looked at as a unit of the whole town.
But you're not looking at the individual department.
Right.
You're looking at
We're
their
looking at-
records.
We're
You're only looking at the money coming in, correct, Ron?
Well, a financial statement audit looks at an entity, and you could have many different departments, and all of them are subject to the testing, but none of them are just looked at by itself, because you're one entity. Now, if you would like me to do extra work in any one area, I can do that. And that's expanding a typical efficient audit. We can expand it if you would like that. But
there's an additional cost.
But there's an additional cost, you see.
Yeah,
So-
I'm just trying to think and understand now, because of the way the funds are coming and they're in the general fund and monitored that way, what is it that we would want audited other than the fund trail?
You guys tell me.
Yeah, I think at that point, we have a handle on what's coming in and what's going out. And that's really what we want. We want to make sure it's coming in to the correct place and leaving and going to the right place and whatever the balances are.
Yeah.
And as long as we can provide that, I think we're good. See, before it was separate and it created some problems, so we're trying to
Yeah,
make things better.
yeah.
And of course, they weren't in the audit process, so. That's the goal, I think, of most of us.
And we're also going through a process of changing how the clerk operates. And it's not gonna be on a fee, it's on fees now. It's not gonna be on a fee system.
Salary.
She'll be paid a salary,
Yeah,
or he, whoever it is.
With a vote of the town.
With the vote
Yeah,
of
we
the
gotta
town.
get a vote
with the
of the
vote
town.
of the town, yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
that should all be, uh, audited so that we know where we're at.
So that the clerk would be on your payroll and
They
She
already
is
are.
now, she
It's
is now.
sub-
They get a
Subject, okay.
stipend, the clerk right now gets a stipend plus fees, recording fees, an X amount of dollars.
just a different way of paying the clerk.
Correct.
Yeah,
Is what we're
Yes,
looking
it
to do.
yeah.
For us, most towns in Vermont are doing it that way anyway.
You
No.
know,
Most of them now are,
Mhm.
right.
And it
Right,
was-
and we see it both ways, yeah. in
It's been
different-
recommended that we do it that way.
Yeah, it kind of more.
So
more
I think,
defined.
okay.
Well,
When
how much
you,
of this was our internal auditor will do?
Well, I think,
That's something happened.
That's different, okay.
yeah, you know, we have an internal auditor that does, you know, checks our books regularly. I assume when you came in and did this audit, you must have worked with our auditor, our treasurer, and our administrative assistants to find things, and
Yeah, we have audit programs that we utilize to direct us on what to look at and how to go about it. We work a lot with your treasurer because she's keeping your books, and we're working with that. As an independent auditor, I can't rely upon your internal auditor to do the work for me. So I will still do what I normally would do, if you have an internal or not. I still have to do what I need to do. So that's,
So how many times a year do you come in and go through things and check things? Do you have to match things up and check them and?
well, your financial statements are annual, the June 30th year end. So after your books get closed,
That's when they are.
that's what I'm going to be auditing. And it's basically all your assets, liabilities, and equity at June 30th, and your revenues and expenses that occurred during the 12 months, 12-month period. So Ellen will give me trial balances off your computer system that recaps all of that, makes its way to your financial statements to summarize it, to really condense it down. And then I go backwards and test. And I use different techniques depending upon the kind of an account that I'm looking at. And a lot of this is all being told to me by my profession of how to go about and do this. I can use some judgment in there too, but I have to have a good reason of why I'm doing something. So that's a typical financial statement audit. Its focus is to say that these statements aren't something that somebody put together to look good. You know.
So most of this is computerized?
Your internal books are computerized, yes.
Okay.
And we will take those numbers, still in the computer form, Excel, and import them into my system, condense, and then go backwards and test. So,
I was just curious because where I work, when the auditors come in a couple times a year, we have to go back through files and dig out things for them to take a look at and go
Yes.
through paperwork and everything.
He
I
spends
wondered
one
if that's
day
the
here.
same thing.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll do the same thing. A lot of the items that we want, the documentation can be given to us electronically.
Oh, okay.
I just have to get them into my system to
Okay.
prove that I've done this work. So Ellen sends me a lot of things electronically. Some things I don't want electronically, like if I'm looking at your payroll records, I want to come here and do it. Or if I'm and then some of your payments that occur, like what you were talking about earlier, paying a bill comes in after the end of the year and not putting it back into the your fiscal year. That process would make your fiscal year look a little bit better if you were holding out invoices. So I'll come in and look at your invoices that you processed in, I'm not going to tell you everything I do, but I'll look at your invoices that you processed in July and say, should this have been back in the year I'm auditing? So those are things I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is leave
as little as possible to come here to do, and have everything else that I possibly can gather done before I come here. And that works out really well when somebody like Ellen sends me everything that I need, and I can tick and tie in my office and do a lot of my work there and just leave a small chunk of it for here. And that's, to me, the most efficient way to go through this whole process. Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah, do you audit a lot of places?
I've been doing this.
Towns or whatever?
Yes, we primarily operate with municipal auditing, followed by nonprofit. And I've been doing this auditing towns since the day I left college 2 years ago.
But your main office is in Portland, Maine, or do
I'm
you
in
have a
Portland.
local?
Yeah.
You don't have a local office anywhere here?
We all operate out of Portland, but we do auditing in anywhere in New England. Every set of financial statements, no matter if you're here or somebody in California, the statements are all formatted the same. It's accounting principles are universal from coast to coast in the United States. Canada's different. So we can do an audit for any of the different states. And I enjoy doing other states too, and your landscape here is very familiar to my landscape.
Do you ever find any problems, or is everything
Oh, yeah.
all smooth as silk?
Yeah, I've issued reports that said I can't give you an opinion on these financial statements.
Not in ours.
Not in yours. And that's not fun. But I had to do that at times to say this is not right. That's the worst case. But you had 4 findings here. The last report I issued, I think we had 12 findings. That was just issued recently. You only needed, government standards say, you shouldn't have to have me make any adjustments. So whenever I make an adjustment, I have to put it as a control item, saying in the future it could cause a bigger. But you only had 4 adjustments. That's very low. So that's very a compliment for Ellen. Okay. Now she's an elected treasurer. If you don't have a good internal control document, the next treasurer, if it's not Ellen, might not. You might not get a clean report. You see. So you have to keep that in mind, and especially with an elected position, because that person doesn't have to be qualified in any accounting area. They just need to get the most number of votes. So it's working right now. But if Ellen decided not to run, I don't even know what her term is, and you got somebody else in here that doesn't know accounting but thinks they can be a treasurer, then it could be very, very difficult. Okay. She's doing all your accounting for you, and accounting now is very, very complicated for a government, for a municipality. Extremely complicated. So
Layers upon layers, grants and other things, you even have more. It's just,
Yeah.
it has got very complicated over the 20-some years I've been here.
yeah, it's but we just have to follow the rules. But
Any other questions, comments? Ellen, you were up next. Did you wanted to go into executive session on this? And we'll
Yeah, I just
ask.
have one thing to say with the, just so that, the reason, just so that you guys know, with the, so they understand the trial balance is run.
yeah,
And the reason why you ended up with a new trial balance in November was because of some of the findings. I had to do some general journal entries because of, like, the bond, when they decreased our interest
Yeah.
But they gave us a new bond number, so
Yeah.
it's considered refinancing, and I didn't show it on the financials. So that, it just changes the trial balance, so that's why he had a new trial balance and had to re-put that in, just so that you know why all of a sudden in November, he has a new balance. It's, if he makes changes, I have to make changes, which changes all the bookwork. Okay. Nope. That's all I have to say.
So this is your first year with us?
Correct, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. No other questions other than going in executive session for treasurer to do with audit contract? Contractual. So we needed a motion to go into executive session for contract.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Right.
Need a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We need a motion to go in executive session.
So
For?
moved.
Legal.
So moved.
Got a
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Done. Okay.